We found a trail of stones arranged to match the pattern of our heartbeat. At first, that's not how we described it. At first, it was just a line of rocks. We had been walking for hours by then, though hours didn't feel like the right measure anymore. Time in that forest moved in long, damp stretches, like breath held too long, like something waiting to exhale. The map said there was an old logging road cutting through the valley. It didn't mention the way the trees leaned inward, their trunks bowed and nodded as if growing towards something buried beneath us. It didn't mention how the ground swallowed sound, how even our footsteps seemed to die before they could echo. There were three of us: me, Jonah, and Elise. Jonah walked ahead, always a little too fast, like he was trying to outrun the silence. Elise stayed behind me, careful with each step, her boots finding only the firmest patches of earth. I kept glancing back at her, not because I thought she'd fall, but because I needed to confirm she was still there. The forest made you doubt continuity. It suggested gaps, missing frames. We hadn't spoken much in the last hour. Not since we stopped hearing birds. I think this is it, Jonah said. He stood in a small clearing, if you could call it that. The canopy above wasn't open, just thinner, allowing a weak gray light to seep through. The ground here was flatter, less tangled with roots. And that's where we saw them. Stones. Maybe a dozen at first glance, each about the size of a fist, dark and smooth as if worn by water. They were laid out in a line that cut diagonally across the clearing, disappearing into thicker brush on the other side. They weren't on the map, Elise said. Old trail marker, maybe, Jonah replied. Hunters. Surveyors. But he didn't sound convinced. I crouched down beside the first stone. It was cold, colder than the surrounding air, and damp in a way that didn't match the dry leaves around it. They're too evenly spaced, I said. Jonah shrugged. So, I didn't answer right away. Because something about the spacing was wrong, not too precise, not perfectly measured. If anything, it was irregular. But not random. It reminded me of something I couldn't quite name. Elise stepped closer, hugging her jacket tighter around herself. We should keep moving, she said. This place. Just a second, I said. I stood and looked along the line. Stone. Gap. Stone. Slightly longer gap. Stone. Two closer together. Then another wider space. A rhythm. Not steady. Not mechanical. Organic. Listen, I said. They both went quiet. At first, there was nothing. Then, faintly, beneath the soft hiss of leaves and the distant groan of wood shifting in the wind. A dull thump. Jonah frowned. What is that? Another thump. Closer. I felt it more than heard it, a subtle pressure in my chest, like someone tapping from the inside. Is that? Elise started. I raised a hand. We stood there, three bodies in a still forest, waiting. Thump. Pause. Thump thump. Pause. Thump. My stomach tightened. No, I said quietly. What? Jonah asked. I pointed down at the stones. Look at the gaps. We stared, and then we heard it again. Thump. Pause. Thump thump. Pause. Thump. The pattern of the stones, those uneven spaces, those clusters and gaps. It matched perfectly. Elise took a step back. That's just coincidence, Jonah said quickly. Too quickly. You're just mapping it in your head. Are you? I asked. He opened his mouth to respond. Then stopped. Because the rhythm changed. Thump. Thump. Pause. Thump. The stones didn't change. But the pattern we heard. No. I swallowed. The stones, I said. They're not matching the sound. Jonah shook his head. No. That's not what's happening. But it was. Because the sound wasn't coming from the forest. It was coming from us. Count it, I said. What? Count your heartbeat. Jonah stared at me. Just do it. He pressed two fingers to his neck, his expression tightening. Elise did the same. I could feel mine already. Too loud, too present. Thump. Pause. Thump thump. Pause. Thump. Jonah's eyes flicked to the stones. Elise's lips parted, her breath shallow. That's not, she whispered. It is, I said. The line of stones wasn't matching some distant sound. It was matching us. Our heartbeat. Not just mine. Not just one of us. All of us. We tested it. We had to. Jonah jogged in place, forcing his pulse higher. Elise did the same, though reluctantly. I counted under my breath, tracking the rhythm as it sped up, became less even. Then we looked down. The stones. They hadn't moved. But the pattern. It still matched. Faster now. The gaps seemed shorter. The clusters tighter. That's impossible, Jonah said. Are they moving? Elise asked. I shook my head. No. But I wasn't sure. Because when I tried to fix my gaze on a specific stone, to anchor it in place, something slipped. Like my focus couldn't quite hold it steady. As if the stones weren't entirely present in the way normal objects were. Let's go, Elise said, more firmly this time. We need to leave. Jonah hesitated. Then nodded. Yeah, okay. We stepped over the line of stones and continued in the direction we'd been heading. For a while, nothing happened. No sound. No movement. Just the oppressive quiet of the forest pressing in around us. I almost convinced myself we'd imagined it. That stress, fatigue, and isolation had twisted our perception into something it wasn't. Then we found the second line. It crossed our path without warning. Same stones. Same size. Same dark, damp sheen. But this time, they curved. Not a straight line, but an arc that bent gently to the left, disappearing into a cluster of low, tangled branches. Jonah swore under his breath. We didn't loop back, he said. We couldn't have. We didn't, I said. I knew that much. The terrain hadn't repeated. The landmarks, what few there were, had been distinct. This is different, Elise said. She crouched beside the stones, her face pale. Look at the spacing. I didn't want to. But I did. Stone. Gap. Stone. Stone. Gap. Stone. A rhythm. Different from before. Slower. More irregular. Like a different heartbeat, Jonah said. Elise nodded. We stood there, not speaking, as the realization settled over us. Whose? She asked. No one answered. That's when we heard it again. Not from within this time. From the forest. A low, distant thump. Followed by another. Slower than ours. Heavier. Each one seemed to press against the air, distorting it slightly, like heat shimmer, but cold. The stones at our feet. They matched it. Perfectly. It's not us, Elise whispered. No, I said. It's something else. Jonah looked into the trees, his jaw tight. Something big, he said. Another thump. Closer now. I felt it in the ground, a faint vibration beneath my boots. The forest seemed to shift with it, branches trembling, leaves rustling in delayed, uneven waves. Like the entire environment was reacting to that rhythm. Or responding to it. We need to get out of here, Elise said. We didn't argue. We moved faster after that. Not running. There was too much undergrowth, too many hidden roots, but a steady, urgent pace that kept our bodies tense and our breathing shallow. The forest didn't change. That was the worst part. No matter how far we went, it remained the same, dense, gray-green, suffocating. The trees leaned at the same angles. The ground dipped and rose in the same subtle patterns. It felt less like moving through space and more like being held in place while the world shifted around us. We started seeing the stones everywhere. Not just lines, clusters, spirals, shapes that almost made sense, if you didn't look at them too long. Each one carried a rhythm. Some fast, some slow, some erratic, skipping beats, doubling back. We stopped trying to interpret them. It only made things worse. Because the more we looked, the more we heard. Not just the distant thumping, but echoes of it. Soft, irregular taps in the underbrush. Faint knocks from inside hollow trunks. The sound of something striking wood, then pausing, then striking again, never quite in the same pattern twice. Except when it matched us. It started with Elise. We were moving along a narrow stretch where the ground dipped into a shallow ravine. The air felt heavier there, thicker, like breathing through damp cloth. She stumbled. Not badly, just enough to catch herself on a nearby tree. You okay? I asked. She nodded, but her hand stayed pressed to the trunk. Do you hear that? She said. Jonah and I listened. Nothing. Then, a faint tapping, right where her hand rested. Tap. Pause. Tap tap. Pause. Tap. I felt my chest tighten. Elise, I said slowly. Move your hand. She hesitated. The tapping continued. Tap. Pause. Tap tap. Her fingers curled against the bark. It's. She started, her voice trembling. It's matching me. Move, Jonah said sharply. She pulled her hand away. The tapping stopped instantly. We stood there, staring at the tree. The bark was smooth, unbroken. No holes. No insects. Nothing that could have made that sound. It's listening, Elise whispered. After that, we tried to control our breathing. To steady our heartbeats. To become less distinct. It didn't work. If anything, the forest responded more. The thumping grew louder. Closer. The stones began to form more complex patterns, intersecting lines, overlapping rhythms that seemed to anticipate our own. At one point, we came across a wide clearing. The ground was covered in stones. Hundreds of them, arranged in concentric circles. Each ring carried a different pattern. Fast, slow, irregular, syncopated, all at once. It was overwhelming. Like standing inside a body that wasn't ours. This is wrong, Jonah said. His voice sounded small. We shouldn't be here. No one disagreed. We tried to cross it. There was no other way. Halfway through, the thumping reached a peak. Not loud, but present in every direction, every surface. In the ground, in the air, in our bones. And then, it stopped. Completely. The silence that followed was absolute. Total. For a moment, I thought I'd gone deaf. Then I realized. I couldn't feel my heartbeat. I froze. Elise. I said. No response. Jonah. Nothing. They were standing a few feet away, both perfectly still. Their faces were blank, eyes wide, hands hanging at their sides. Guys, I said, my voice rising. Say something. Jonah's lips parted. A sound came out. Not words. A thump. Elise's chest jerked. Another thump. Not from within. From outside. From the forest. The stones shifted. I don't know how else to describe it. They didn't move in any visible way, but their arrangement changed. The patterns aligned, merged, simplified, into one. A single rhythm. Slow. Deliberate. Powerful. Thump. The ground trembled. Thump. The trees creaked, bending inward. Thump. Jonah took a step forward. Elise. I said. She followed. No. I said. Stop. They didn't. Their movements were stiff, synchronized. Like puppets. Or like something was guiding them, matching them to that external rhythm. Listen to me. I shouted. No reaction. Another thump. They stepped again. Toward the center of the clearing. Toward the densest cluster of stones. I grabbed Elise's arm. Her skin was cold. Her pulse. I couldn't find it. Elise, please, I said. Her head turned slowly. Toward me. Her eyes focused. Just for a second. And in that second, I saw it. Understanding. Fear. And something else. Acceptance. It knows, she whispered. Then her expression went blank again. She pulled free from my grip. Continued forward. Jonah was already kneeling at the center. His hands pressed into the soil. Elise joined him. They began placing stones. I hadn't noticed them picking them up. But now they were moving them with precise, deliberate motions. Rearranging the pattern. Completing it. No, I said. I stumbled backward. The thumping grew louder. Closer. Not from one direction, but from everywhere. And then I saw it. Not fully. Never fully. Just a distortion in the air beyond the trees. A shape that didn't hold still. Massive. Layered. Like multiple forms overlapping, shifting in and out of alignment. It pulsed. In time with the rhythm. Thump. The forest bent toward it. Thump. The stones vibrated. Thump. Jonah and Elise finished the pattern. They sat back. Still. Waiting. I understood then. The stones weren't just mimicking us. They were teaching the forest our rhythm. Mapping it. Recording it. And when the pattern was complete, the forest could play it back. Perfectly. Without us. Or, in place of us. The thing in the trees pulsed again. And this time, I felt my heartbeat return. Violent. Sudden. Out of sync. Too fast. Too loud. The stones reacted instantly. The pattern broke. Shattered. Reformed. Trying to match me. Correct me. Jonah and Elise twitched. Their heads snapping toward me. Eyes locking. Not recognition. Not anymore. Alignment. They stood. Moved toward me. In perfect synchronization. Thump. Step. Thump. Step. No, I said, backing away. The forest closed in. The path behind me, gone. Replaced with more trees. More stones. More patterns. I turned and ran. I don't know how long I ran. Time didn't exist in any way I could measure. Only rhythm. My breath. My heartbeat. The forest responded to both. Branches snapped in time with my steps. Leaves rustled in delayed echoes. The thumping followed. Always just behind. Always matching. Correcting. I stumbled into another clearing. Smaller. Quieter. No stones. I collapsed, gasping. For a moment, there was nothing. No sound. No movement. Then, a single stone rolled into view. From the edge of the clearing. It stopped a few feet from me. Then another. And another. They arranged themselves slowly. Deliberately. Not a full pattern. Just the beginning. A suggestion. An invitation. I pressed a hand to my chest. My heartbeat was erratic. Panicked. Human. The stones adjusted. Matching it. Learning it. I understood then. This wasn't about trapping us. Not entirely. It was about synchronization. About bringing our internal rhythms into alignment with something larger. Something that existed beneath the forest. Within it. The stones were just the interface. The visible part of a system that mapped, recorded, and replicated. And once it had your rhythm, once it could reproduce it perfectly, it didn't need you anymore. I looked up. The trees leaned closer. The air thickened. The unseen thing pulsed. Waiting. Listening. I closed my eyes. Tried to slow my breathing. My heart. To become still. But the fear made it worse. Faster. Louder. The stones moved more quickly. Adapting. Perfecting. I realized there was only one way to break it. To deny it the pattern. I stood. Staggered to the edge of the clearing. Picked up one of the stones. It was colder than anything I'd ever touched. Alive in a way that wasn't life. I raised it. And brought it down on my own chest. Hard. Pain exploded through me. My breath vanished. My heart. It stuttered. Skipped. Lost its rhythm. For a moment, there was nothing. No pattern. No consistency. Just chaos. The stones froze. The forest hesitated. The thumping faltered. I hit myself again. And again. Each blow disrupting the rhythm further. Breaking it. Corrupting it. The stones began to crack. Hairline fractures spreading across their surfaces. The unseen thing pulsed erratically. Out of sync. I fell to my knees. My vision darkening. My heartbeat. Fading. Irregular. Unusable. The stones shattered. One by one. The sound echoed through the forest. Not a crack, but a dull, hollow collapse. Like something losing structure. Losing coherence. The pressure in the air lifted. Slightly. Just enough. I collapsed fully. Face against the damp earth. My last clear thought was this. It can't map what isn't consistent. I woke up at the edge of the forest. Alone. The trees behind me were normal. Straight. Still. Silent in the ordinary way. No stones. No patterns. No thumping. Just wind. Just leaves. My chest ached. Bruised. But my heartbeat. It was steady. Human. Mine. I never found Jonah or Elise. Search teams went in. They found nothing. No trails. No clearings. No stones. Just forest. Dense and unremarkable. They said we must have gotten lost. That I must have wandered out alone. That shock and dehydration had caused hallucinations. I let them believe that. Because I couldn't explain it. Not in a way that made sense. Not in a way that didn't sound like madness. But sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet, I hear it. Faint. Distant. A dull, deliberate thump. Not matching me. Not anymore. But waiting. Learning. And I know. Somewhere deep in those woods, the pattern is still incomplete. And something is still listening. For the rest of it. Something in the woods kept snapping photos of us with an unseen camera. At first, we thought it was a joke. We were 5 miles past the last marked trail, deep enough into the forest that the trees grew older and closer together, their trunks thick with moss and their branches woven into a ceiling that smothered the sky. The map on my phone had long since frozen, replaced by a blank grid that pulsed faintly, as if trying to remember where we were. Ethan laughed when the first photo appeared. "Did you send this?" he asked, holding up his phone. We were standing in a clearing that shouldn't have been there, a perfect circle of flattened grass surrounded by trees that leaned inward, like they were listening. The air felt damp and stale, carrying the scent of wet bark and something faintly metallic. "No signal," Maya said, checking her own screen. "It's been gone for hours." Ethan shook his head. "Then how did this?" He stopped. I stepped closer. On his phone was a picture of us. All four of us, Ethan, Maya, Lucas, and me, standing exactly where we were now, in that clearing. The angle was wrong. It wasn't taken from any of our perspectives. It was elevated slightly, tilted, like whoever, or whatever, had taken it had been standing between the trees, just beyond the ring. "What the hell?" Lucas murmured. The timestamp read 3:12 p.m. It was 2:47. We checked our phones in unison. The time was correct. No glitch. "Okay," Maya said slowly. "One of you is messing with us." "No one has signal," I said. "No one can send anything." Ethan zoomed in. The image sharpened. That's when we noticed the fifth figure. It stood just beyond the clearing, half obscured by a tree trunk. Tall. Indistinct. Its shape seemed to blur into the bark, like it was part of the forest itself. "Was that there?" Lucas asked. We all turned. The trees were still, dense, silent. Nothing stood between them. When we looked back at the photo, the figure was still there. We left the clearing quickly after that. No one said it out loud, but we all felt it, the shift. The sense that something had begun, something we didn't understand but were already part of. The forest grew quieter as we walked. At first, I thought it was just the absence of birds, but it was more than that. The usual background noise, the rustle of leaves, the distant creak of branches, faded until all that remained was the sound of our footsteps and our breathing. Even that began to feel muffled. As if the air itself was absorbing sound. "Do you hear that?" Maya whispered. We stopped. There was nothing. "No," Ethan said. "That's the problem." The fog rolled in shortly after. It seeped between the trees in thin, pale strands, coiling around trunks and pooling low to the ground. It didn't move like normal fog, it lingered, clung, thickened in places where there was no wind. Within minutes, visibility dropped to a few yards. "We should turn back," Lucas said. "Back where?" I asked. He didn't answer. Because none of us were sure which direction we'd come from anymore. The trail we'd been following, faint as it was, had disappeared. The ground beneath our feet was uniform, a carpet of leaves and roots that showed no sign of passage. "That's not possible," Maya said, turning in a slow circle. "We've been walking in a straight line." "Have we?" Ethan muttered. That's when the second photo appeared. This time, it was on my phone. I didn't feel it arrive, no vibration, no notification. I just glanced down, and there it was, sitting in my gallery like it had always been there. I opened it. We were walking through the fog, our shapes blurred at the edges. The image was taken from behind, low to the ground, as if the camera had been crouched among the roots. The timestamp read 4:03 p.m. It was 3:11. "Guys," I said. They gathered around. "No," Maya said immediately. "No, no, no." In the photo, something followed us. At first glance, it looked like a shadow stretched too long, too thin. But as we stared, it resolved into a shape, a figure moving just beyond the fog, its limbs elongated, its posture wrong. Its head was tilted, and it was looking directly at the camera. "Is that behind us?" Lucas whispered. We turned. The fog pressed in, dense and impenetrable. It swallowed the trees, the ground, everything beyond a few feet. There was nothing there. But the cold intensified. It wasn't the natural chill of shaded woods. This was deeper, sharper, a cold that seemed to come from within, sinking into bone and muscle. My breath fogged in front of me. "Why is it so cold?" Ethan asked. No one answered. We started walking again, faster now. The forest began to change. At first, it was subtle, the way the trees seemed to lean at slightly unnatural angles, their trunks bending just enough to feel wrong. Then the spacing shifted. Trees that had been far apart now stood close together, their branches interlocking like fingers. Stop, Maya said suddenly. We did. Look. She pointed ahead. The ground dipped slightly, forming a shallow path between the trees. It looked familiar. Too familiar. No, Lucas said. That's not. It was the clearing. The same perfect circle, the same leaning trees. We'd been walking for nearly an hour. We hadn't turned. We're looping, I said. But how? Ethan snapped. We've been going straight. The fog thickened as we stepped back into the clearing. It gathered at the edges, forming a pale wall that cut us off from the forest beyond. And in the center of the clearing, something new waited. A photograph lay on the ground. We approached it slowly. It was printed, not on glossy paper, but something thicker, textured, like old film photographs. Maya picked it up with trembling hands. It showed the clearing. Empty. The timestamp read, 5:22 p.m. It was 3:46. That's the future, Lucas said. Yes, Maya whispered. But, look closer. We leaned in. At first, I didn't see it. Then my eyes adjusted. The clearing wasn't empty. Something was standing at the center. It was hard to make out, its shape blurred, stretched, like it didn't belong in the frame. But it was there, tall and thin, its limbs extending too far, its head tilted at that same unnatural angle. And surrounding it, us. 4 shapes, barely visible, arranged in a circle around the thing. Not standing. Lying. No, Ethan said, backing away. No. No. The temperature dropped again. My fingers went numb. The fog pulsed. And somewhere, deep in the forest, something clicked. Not a camera shutter. Something softer. Organic. Like a blink. We tried to leave the clearing again. This time, we marked our path. Lucas tore strips from his jacket, tying them to branches as we moved. Bright fabric against dark bark, a clear, undeniable trail. It didn't work. Within minutes, the markers began to disappear. Not all at once. Not dramatically. One by one, we'd glance back, and a strip would be gone. Or it would be there, but tied to a different tree. Or higher than Lucas could have reached. That's not possible, he said, his voice cracking. Nothing about this is possible, Maya replied. The third photo appeared as we argued. This time, all of us felt it. A sudden shift in the air, a pressure that made our ears pop. Then, simultaneously, our phones lit up. The same image. We stood together, huddled in the fog. But the angle was wrong again, too close, too intimate. Like the camera was right in front of us, inches from our faces. Except there was nothing there. In the photo, our expressions were different. More afraid. More aware. Behind us, towering above the trees, the thing loomed. It was clearer now. Its body was a lattice of branches and shadow, its limbs splitting and rejoining like roots searching through soil. Its face, or what passed for one, was a smooth, featureless surface that reflected light in dull, uneven patches. And embedded in that surface, shapes. Small, circular indentations. Hundreds of them. Like lenses. Or eyes. The timestamp read, 6:01 p.m. It was 4:12. It's watching us, Maya said. It's been watching us, I corrected. Since when? Lucas asked. No one answered. Because the truth was obvious. Since before we arrived. The fog began to glow. At first, it was faint, a pale, diffuse light that seemed to come from nowhere. Then it intensified, casting long, warped shadows that bent in directions that didn't match any source. Our shadows stretched sideways, upward, into the trees. Light doesn't do that, Ethan said. Nothing here does what it should, Maya replied. The air smelled different now. Not just damp earth and moss, but something sharper, like ozone, like the air after a lightning strike. Or the inside of old electronics. We moved cautiously, following the faint slope of the land, hoping it would lead us somewhere, anywhere that wasn't back to the clearing. That's when we found it. A structure. If you could call it that. It rose between the trees, partially obscured by fog and branches. At first glance, it looked like a pile of fallen wood, a natural collapse of trunks and limbs. But as we approached, the pattern emerged. It wasn't random. It was constructed. Interwoven branches formed walls, spiraling inward to create a hollow space at the center. The wood was old, blackened, brittle, but intact, as if preserved by something beyond time. What is this? Lucas whispered. A nest, Maya said. No, I said. Not a nest. A camera. Or the idea of one. The structure mimicked the shape of a lens, circular, narrowing toward the center, focusing inward. The branches curved and overlapped in precise, deliberate ways, creating an aperture that framed the space beyond. And inside that space, more photographs. Hundreds of them. They covered the inner walls, layered and overlapping, their edges curling with age. We stepped inside. The temperature plummeted. My breath came in shallow bursts, each one fogging the air. Don't touch anything, Ethan said. Maya ignored him. She reached out, peeling one of the photos from the wall. It showed a group of people. Not us. Older. Different clothes. They stood in the same clearing. The same trees. The same fog. Behind them, the thing watched. The timestamp read a date from decades ago. This has been happening for a long time, Maya said. Look at this, Lucas added, pulling another photo free. It showed the same group, but fewer of them. Then fewer. Then one. And finally, none. Just the clearing. And the thing at its center. We didn't need to look at each other. We understood. This is what it does, I said. It collects records, Maya corrected. Consumes, Ethan muttered. Another photo slid free from the wall on its own. It drifted down, landing at our feet. We stared. It was us, standing in the structure, looking at the photos. The timestamp read 7:18 p.m. It was 4:39. In the image, something stood behind us. Closer than before. Its surface, those lens-like indentations, shifted, focusing. Capturing. Don't turn around, Lucas said. But we did. There was nothing there. The structure creaked. The branches shifted. And then, that soft, organic click. Closer this time. Right beside us. We ran. Out of the structure. Through the fog. Back into the forest that no longer felt like a place but a mechanism. The trees closed in as we moved, their trunks bending, their branches reaching. The ground sloped and twisted, leading us in circles we couldn't see. The photos kept appearing. On our phones. On the ground. Hanging from branches. Each one closer to the future. Each one revealing more. Lucas tripping, falling. Then a photo of him lying still. Maya screaming. Then a photo of her mouth open too wide, her eyes reflecting something that wasn't there. Ethan turning, running the wrong direction. Then a photo of him alone, the fog swallowing him whole. Stop looking at them, I shouted. But we couldn't. They were everywhere. And they were right. Every step we took, every choice we made, it was already there, captured, fixed. I realized then what the timestamps meant. They weren't predictions. They were records. We weren't moving toward the future. We were moving through something that had already been seen. Already been captured. It's not taking pictures, I said, breathless. It already has. Maya stumbled. What? It's showing us what it's already seen, I said. We're not being watched. We've already been. The words caught in my throat. Because ahead of us, through the thinning fog, the clearing appeared again. And this time, something stood in the center. Not a blur. Not a shadow. Clear. Defined. Waiting. It was the thing from the photos. Tall. Impossibly thin, its body a shifting lattice of wood and shadow. Its surface rippled with those lens-like indentations, each one reflecting a different angle, a different moment. A different version of us. We slowed. Stopped. It tilted its head. And the world went silent. Completely. No breath. No movement. Just that presence. Watching. Recording. Understanding. Maya stepped forward. I think, she whispered, I think this is where it takes them. Takes them where? Lucas asked. She didn't answer. Because she didn't need to. The photos had already shown us. The circle. The four shapes on the ground. The thing at the center. It's not taking us, I said, a sudden clarity cutting through the fear. It's replacing us. Ethan looked at me. What? Look at it, I said. We did. Really looked. At the branches that formed its limbs. At the way they shifted. Adjusted. Like they were trying to match something. Someone. The indentations on its surface flickered, each one showing a different image. Our faces. Our movements. Our positions. It wasn't just recording. It was learning. Every photo, I said. Every angle. It's building a complete picture. Maya's voice trembled. Of what? Of us. The thing took a step forward. Its limbs bent, reconfigured. For a moment, just a moment, its silhouette matched Ethan's. Then Lucas's. Then mine. Back up, Ethan said. We did. The clearing seemed to shrink, the trees pressing inward. The fog thickened again, glowing faintly. The thing moved closer. And then, the final photo appeared. Not on our phones. In the air. It simply was. A perfect, clear image, suspended before us. We stood in the clearing. The four of us. Except, something was wrong. We weren't looking at the camera. We were looking at the ground. At four shapes lying in a circle. And standing over them, us. Perfect copies. Still. Empty. The timestamp read 8:02 p.m. It was 4:58. That's not. Lucas began. But it was. The realization hit all at once. The photos weren't of what would happen. They were of what had already happened. We weren't the originals. We were the copies. The thing didn't hunt. It archived. It replaced. And the moment it finished. The moment it had every angle, every expression, every detail. The original was no longer needed. The forest shifted. The fog parted. And for a brief, impossible second, I saw beyond it. Rows upon rows of those structures. Those lens-shaped nests. Each one filled with photos. Each one holding a different group. A different time. A different set of copies. Endless. The thing stepped closer. Its surface rippled. And I felt something pull at me, not physically, but structurally. Like my shape was being measured. Adjusted. Finalized. Maya screamed. Lucas ran. Ethan stood frozen. And I looked at the photo again. At the copies. At the stillness in their eyes. And I understood. We couldn't leave. Because we already hadn't. The forest didn't trap you. It processed you. The last thing I heard was that soft, organic click. Not from outside. From within. And then, nothing moved. But something continued. Standing in the clearing. Watching the next group arrive. Waiting to take the first picture.